Now you've been with us for 2 weeks as we did this masterclass on evaluating the Proto-Thesis of Bahrain and the early alphabetic inscriptions. This is going to be our third and final part of this masterclass. So again, if you haven't seen the first 2 parts, please go back and do so. And in the meantime, enjoy this final part of this masterclass on ancient Egypt and the Bible. All right, next inscription here. Oh boy, this one's a doozy. This one's a doozy. Sinai 361. Okay. Now, we talked about this a lot on IP's channel the other night. And we have here a few images of Sinai 361. This one was reported by Gardner. Gardner describes that this entire section here was damaged when it fell off the wall. And this was found face down. And this was restored. It was broken into several pieces on the right-hand side, which have been since restored. We've got one set of epigraphy here from, I think it's from 15. And Bahrain reads a whole bunch of stuff in this damaged area. And he adds his, this is an oracle of Moshe, right down here in a 7th register at the bottom. Let's pull up the RTI image and let's take a look. And frankly, if this inscription falls to, his whole hypothesis of this is Moses falls with it. And then I'm going to take a specular enhancement. Look at the damage side first. Right. I see absolutely nothing here that he claims is under the damage line. Absolutely nothing is there. This is pure pareidolia. I don't get this at all. It's just, yeah, there's nothing there. Nothing there except damaged rock. And you can see there's the hole. And here's the hole for reference mark. Okay. So right behind that reference mark should be something. And above that reference mark should be a cough. And I don't see any of that. This is the worst case of wishful thinking I've ever seen. All right, let's go now to the other side, the Moses side of this. Okay. All right. We can see there that there's the sheen. Sheen's easily identifiable. Okay, it's got good inscription depth. It's very clear. There's the noon. There's the meme. There's the noon. There's another sheen there. The marks that everyone agrees on, the glyphs everyone agrees on, are easily identifiable. But you can see down here there should be 2 memes and a sheen. And there is absolutely nothing there. There is absolutely nothing there. It is, it's painfully clear that, you know, we should even find, say, for example, the tail of the first noon on register 7 underneath this meme, and it's not there. Go back to the regular default image. You can just see it's just smooth rock. This is terrifyingly bad epigraphy. Terrifyingly bad epigraphy. So there's no, this is an oracle of Moses here. That's completely, RTI imaging has basically discredited that idea entirely. But let's look at, see if the rest of his, how the rest of his inscription does here. So we're going to go here and we're going to go register 1. Do we have anything here to corroborate register 1? Register 1 would actually be way up here. So we don't have that part of the rock here per se, but enough here to take a look. See if something's there. I don't see anything there. How about register 2? Okay, I see a small bait, looks like a bait right in there. And that would be, oh, look at that. That's his white bait right there. Okay? That we can agree on, is that white bait. And it looks like there's some sort of inscription right there too, although it's too fragmentary to know what that is. Okay, so his, above that, I don't see anything. I don't see an aleph up there. I don't see nothing up there. Nothing up there. There's no haze. There's no alephs. There's nothing. All right, so, and the rest of that register 3 is not even it's in the damaged portion. So he must be doing some good stuff to be seeing this stuff. All right, let's move on to, what's it, the register 4. Okay, register 4, I see the shin. Sheen, no problem. Very clear. I do not see a ham above it. It looks like he's going by the contour of the rock here. We take off the specular enhancements for a moment. There's a contour of the rock that he looks like he's misinterpreting as a hay. That's not a hay. That can't be a hay. That's part of the contour of the rock, and you can just tell by moving the specular right around that this is a natural part of the rock. It's not part of an inscription. Below that, he sees a meme. I don't see that either. There is some sort of inscription, inscribed line right there, but he doesn't account for that. That's this line right here. So he's not actually the one line that is actually there. He doesn't recognize. He's seeing a meme across that line, and I don't see that. In fact, the RTI imaging seems to discredit that idea. And then he sees a great big dollet right there. I don't see this either. I don't see that either. And then he claims to see below there, still register 4. Let's see, still register 4. Still register 4. A mame, and then another hay. Okay, I kind of see the mame. We might be able to see the mame right in there. But the hay, super dodgy. I don't see it really. That noon down there can't be there because that's part of the damaged stone. He has it in gray, so for this, it's his hypothetical reconstruction. We can ignore that pretty much. All right, register 5. Register 5. Supposed to begin with a kof. I don't see it. Then a noon or a mame. I don't see that. And then a bait. I don't see that. The Zion I see. See the Zion. See the Tov. And I see the mame. Okay, is very recognizable. The final bait is debatable. That bait looks like it's actually part of the hay. The legs on the hay. You can see this. There's the head of the hay. There's the upstretched arms. And you get the body coming down to there. And then you've got a side stroke for thighs, a stroke down, and a stroke down. That looks like it's part of the hay. We can just check this with the default to be sure. Yeah, it very much looks like part of the hay. So as far as the rest of his register 5, the ayin, the lamed, and the tav, I don't see it at all. So, I mean, there's a little scratch down there that could be something. Is that a tov? I don't think so. I don't think there's a tov should be a cross anyway. That doesn't look like a cross to me. And there's certainly no ayin up there, and there's certainly no lamed as far as I can tell. He's making it up. Okay, now let's proceed to register 6. Register 6. We don't even have to start here. We've got a sheen at the top. That's no problem. This is not a bait tov. We can look here at the specular enhancements, and we can just see that this is not a bait tov. Now, it's questionable what this is. In all likelihood, it is a hate. Like, we can tell it's a hate because you've got the crossbar there, one dividing the bottom, but it doesn't go up. So this is what happens when that twisted flax eventually gets fully converted. So this would be a later inscription in the Middle Kingdom. But this is very, very typical of a hate, and I don't think that's all that controversial. But it's definitely not a beit tov. Okay, so he's got that transcription wrong there. Then we got a bait, no problem. Sheen, no problem. A noon, no problem there. Maim, no issue, and then that final sheen. And of course, that we've already discredited, shown that there's nothing there for register 7. So when we look at this translation, the God, O King, the godfather of the Balat, destroy them and be avenged of the Balat. To the reader, in that you came, be ashamed, let us depart, a statement from Moses. Now, we've already shown that practically everything from registers 1, 2, and 3 isn't there. So everything to Ba, and Ba is this is the only thing that's here in the first 3 registers. That's it. So almost that entire prayer isn't there. As far as register 4, only the sh is there and the maim. The sh and the So the reader thing, that's not there either. That in that you came isn't there. In register 5, the Zion's there, and the Tate is there, and the Maim, but the bait isn't. So the Zit Ha is there. All the rest of that is make-believe. And finally, in register 6, you've got the Zion, that's there. The Sheen's there. But the next one's not a bait. It's a hate. So, a hate followed by a bait and a sheen. So this cannot possibly read, be ashamed, let us depart. Okay? So there's huge translational issues here that are really, really problematic. So, and then of course that statement from Moses is not there at all. It's make-believe. So this completely destroys Baran's main thesis here, that these were left by Moses. There's no evidence for it. In fact, the evidence shows the contrary. At least Moses didn't write his signature here. He's not leaving a signature here. All his claims in Sinai 357 and Sinai 361 are devoid of merit. There's no warrant for his claims at this point. All right, next text here. Sinai 375a, and this is one that's near and dear to my heart because I have actually done published work on this one. So, now he's got here a reading on the left by Petrovich, photo by Morenz, and then he's got this strange reading here. Now, this one is bizarre, and we're going to get into how bizarre this is. Okay, what I'll do is first, and then I'll show you my reading of this. Now, one of the things you're going to notice here is he has not done a damage assessment. This is the original stela. It's covered in ochre. You can easily do a damage assessment of this. This part up here, badly damaged. It's damaged all along the buckle, and it's damaged down here, and it's damaged in there. Okay? So, let's bring up our RTI image, and let's take a look. Well, we talked earlier about inscriptional depth. The inscriptional depth of Sinai 375a is incredibly shallow. It's shallower than most inscriptions you'll ever encounter. It's so hard to read that even in person, it is exceptionally difficult to read. But this is one of the times when strobe lighting really, really helps. Okay? So, using all the tools available, we're going to start here with the RTI image, and we're going to go to our specular enhancement, and we're going to start here. He's got this weird idea, that the inscription goes in 4 registers in a circle around the stela. He starts here, goes up there, comes back down, and this way. And then he's got a dalet in the center. 2 dalets in the center. For no reason. No good reason at all. Okay. So let's start with his reading on this side here. Now, he claims that there is a noon there. Honestly, I didn't see this. Not there. There's something there, but I don't. Yeah, this one is. You can see kind of a divot there, but I don't think that's a noon. It doesn't look like a noon. There's no proper head on that. Then he reads this as a cough. And actually, a lot of people read that as a cough. So he would actually have some warrant for reading that as a cough. And then another noon there. So that's his first register. Okay. Then we go across the top here. He reads a sheen there. Possible. A vertical meme. I don't see it. And I didn't see it. But I saw something else there. But no, I don't see the vertical meme there. He sees a hate there. Now, there is a hate in there, but it is not quite there. The issue here, to get closer here, is that the ox head aleph, there is sort of a hate in there, but there's not a second line there. It's not that kind of hate. Okay? Then he reads an ox head aleph. And yes, I can see the ox head aleph, no problem there. And then he kind of does something weird. He reads a tov in there. And I don't see the tov. And then he sees a dancing man right there, which he reads as a hey. And nobody agrees with him on that. Then he reads a bait and an ion in there, and this is a badly damaged area. So I don't see how he sees either the bait or the ion there. Interestingly enough, there is a glyph. You can see the glyph right there, but he ignores it entirely. Instead, he sees a lamet there and a tov there, and I don't see it there. Again, I see it as part of that glyph, that squarish torch-like glyph. He also sees a vav that kind of goes over it and around like that. That would be here. But that looks kind of more like a scratch or something else. I didn't see it when I looked at this in person. Okay, the ox head aleph. There's a big old ox head aleph there. Everyone agrees with that. There's no issue with the ox head aleph. But then underneath there, he kind of goes off the rails. He sees a noon here. But there's clearly an eye shape. There's clearly an eye shape. And a lot of people see that. He also claims to see a second hey in there, and I don't see that either. But there's also this mouth shape there. He also claims below that to see, but you can see the mouth shape clearly in his inscription. You can see the eye shape there. You can also see a couple of parallel lines here he doesn't ever account for. A bunch of parallel lines, and they're deeply inscribed. So he also sees a cough, and a lot of people see a cough there, but that's not what's there. And then a final hate, okay? And that's his reading of this text. And he reads this as right. Give joy to Balat. I mean, literally, correct. Give joy to Balat, but there is no strength. We will die. Okay. I've found a completely different reading in here. Completely. So what we're going to do is we're going to swap out the reading, and I'm going to show you what I found and how it differed. All right. So this is what I found when I did my own reading of this. Now, what I did, first thing I did was a damage assessment. Because good epigraphers do damage assessments. Okay, so you can see the gray edge there. That's where we got a buckle, where the image kind of falls off the edge. Okay. When I looked at this, what I saw was a bilingual reading. Half Egyptian, half early alphabetic Semitic. The Egyptian runs down, the Semitic runs across the top. His reading, where I did not see anything at the bottom in that area right there. There was nothing there on his entire first register. I think is complete nonsense. Okay. Now, what I saw here was going down the Egyptian side. That's damaged. So, but I could see part of the flag up top there. That looks like the Netcher, you know, the Egyptian glyph for God. And this looked like a censor. This appeared to be a hand. But what I saw here was the cow's head, and everyone agrees the cow head, but it was attached to these lines. Now, these lines have been found by other epigraphers. Everyone recognizes those lines are there. You'll find this in the readings of like Sass and Leibovitch and all that stuff. Okay, so everyone recognizes they're there. And they are attached to the cow's head. But there's other lines attached to it too. And it looked to me like a sacred bark, a bark of Hathor. And that's an eye. Again, almost everyone thinks that's an eye, as in an ocular eye. And then you have a mouth, but this is an Egyptian mouth. So this would be a word meaning opening. Okay? And then we got a moon glyph, a rabbit, and then a door glyph. Okay? And going from this glyph, back here. This glyph up here actually means Imira. Okay, this is overseer. It's an Egyptian word. So what we've got here is the statement, and I'll walk you through this. So, Imira, Netcher, Seshem, Ear, Eok, When. And this reads, Overseer of the temple, the bark of Hathor celebrates the festival procession. Okay. So this would be a votive inscription. This would be an inscription that would be used as a dedicatory stele for somebody who's worshiping Hathor. Okay. Now, the Semitic portion starts here and runs off the side here. And it reads, it's a cow head, but it also has a neck. And these do exist in early alphabetic inscriptions. And in fact, I found several examples of these in various early alphabetic inscriptions where the cow head actually has a neck attached. So there's lots of comparative examples here. We've got a hate. Then we've got a bait, an ayin, a lamed, a zion. This is a different zion, okay? But it is a zion. It's an early zion. A koth and a partial resh, okay? And this reads, Ak, Baal, Zakar, the brother of Baal Zakar. Or Baal Zakar means Baal remembers. So when I look at this and I go through, say, do the same analysis as I did with the other texts, okay, let's go back to our RTI viewer here and verify that reading that I showed. Okay, you can see that that's the door at the bottom. That's the festival door. Okay, it's got hinges. It's actually got a place where the door would sit in the sockets. And it has that on both sides. That is a rabbit. Okay. You can see it right there. There's the feet. There's the hind legs. There's the head and the ears. Very cute. We got then the moon glyph underneath there. Not hard to see. It's there though. Show you better here. Little better there. So there's the bunny rabbit. There's the moon glyph. Right there. That's the Eok. Okay, there's the Eok. There's the ear. This is the opening. That's, again, an Egyptian word. No issues there. Shouldn't be anyway. You've got the eye. That's to do. Verb to do. There's the cow head. Notice those two poles there. 2 lines. Lead to a shrine chapel on top of a bark. Bark stand is right there. And you can even see the piece of the sledge there. Okay, the sledge is there. And you got the hand and the sachem. This is the offering portion. And then you've got at the top, this is the badly destroyed area. Very hard to see the Netcher because it's very hard to see. But then you've got the Imirah. There's the Imirah right there, and it is unmistakably Imirah. That is clearly an Egyptian glyph. There's no Semitic letter like that. Ox have Aleph plus its neck right there. The hate is right there. And I'll move the reflection here so you can see it. There's the outline of the hate, cross section, and the crossbar. The bait is in there. No, you can see the bait better there. Iron is right there. The Lamed is there. That hourglass figure of the Zion is there. It better. See it probably best at that angle there. There's the Zion. You got the Kaf here. And then just against the buckle here, you got the Resh. And there's the Resh. There's the bar, line 1, line 2 going up there. Okay. This is part of what's sometimes called the flag or triangular Resh. Okay. Not all Reshes were shaped like heads. These glyphs did change over time. Okay. So it's a votive inscription dedicated to Hathor and to the Bark Shrine of Hathor. So again, the Egyptian text reads, Imirah Ok Netcher Seshem Ir Iakwen, or the overseer of the temple. The Bark of Hathor celebrates the festival procession. And the Semitic side reads, Ok Bel Zakar, the brother of Baal Zakor. And Baal Zakor is a name meaning Baal remembers. So that's my reading of this text. And if you want to see more details on this, you can look this up in my book, The Ark of the Covenant in its Egyptian Context, an Illustrated Journey. And it is on page 113 and 114. Okay. Let's move on to the next inscription here, which is, and we're on to inscription 19. Sinai, just 375. Accompanying meal offering to Hathor. Scrawled over with praises to El. Okay, there's his inscription. Let's see if we have. First of all, let me make sure we have this here. I don't happen to have an RTI image of this one. Wasn't one available. What we have is a variety of high-resolution scans of this. And this is interesting. The scans are probably enough here. Let's get the image viewer up. All right. Here we go. Now, he claims there's a lot here that he's claiming. He's claiming that this is a very, very full inscription. He's got one, he doesn't number his registers this time like he has previously, but he's got, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 registers, starting from the left. This is his leftmost register here. Okay. He claims there's a MAME there. I don't see it. This is flat. This is a super flat inscription. This has been rubbed flat and then basically gone over. He claims there's an aleph there. I don't see that either. He claims there's a hate there. Or sorry, a hey there. And gee, you know what? I'm not seeing that either. Bait? I'm not seeing any bait. And then he claims another bait, an ayin, a lamed. And this is not even counting this mark. He's not even addressing that crack there. But there's supposed to be an ayin there. There's supposed to be a lamed there. There's supposed to be a tav. I don't see any of that. I really don't see any of that at all. Now, register 2. I see a MAME. Okay, that I see. A dalet. That looks like a dalet. I see that too. Oh, here's an example of a dalet that has no destruction. I don't know how this dalet supposedly missed his demitio memoriae, but that's a perfectly readable dalet with no damage at all. See the ayin there? See the tav? Oh, that's not a cough, man. That is so not a cough. Clearly that's that character, that Gimel Pei he keeps sort of switching between. But that is not a cough. He shows here that this sort of glyph hooks around up like that. That's not what's going on there. That's a closed loop. That has got to be either a Gimel or a Pei, depending on who you listen to. And then he claims another ayin beneath there. I think we're in Fantasyland here. In fact, we've got another image we can reference here. We got this from an RTI scan. And you can just see there is nothing there. Absolutely nothing there. And there's nothing there that would support a loop back for that cough. His third register, a sheen at the top. Maybe that's a sheen. That's hard to tell. Possible it's a sheen. Bait. Yeah, I can go with the bait on that. I would say this. If this is a sheen, it's reversed. So that the tines of the bow are pointing down. Same with this one. If this is a sheen, that's a bow pointing down, not a curled up. That, as a lamed, I think is pretty debatable. It looks more like a bait. This as a tav. Or sorry, this as a... Yeah, he thinks it's a tav. I don't see it. I don't see this. It's possibly a bait or a hate. It could be a hate because it's or triangular. If there's a line there, then that's a hate. Possible it's a hate. He wants to say that this is a bait, a really, really big bait that comes out like this. I don't see that at all. That's a tov. That's a clear tov. This is an idiotically clear tov. A half-blind Mr. Magoo could see that this is a tov. It's a cross. It's a clear cross. You know, him thinking that this is crackers. This is nuts. And these things he kind of ignores, which is fine. But no, that is not a bait. There's no way that is a bait. Okay. His fourth register starts with a MAME. Yeah, okay, I can see that. No problem. Underneath it is clearly an ion. That's not a hey, that's an ion. He wants to say this is this. I'm not seeing it. I don't see any possibility for that being an ion. Or sorry, being a hey. That's clearly an ion. In fact, this is one of the clearer inscriptions we've seen all night. To be very honest, this is one of the clearer inscriptions we've had so far. That's an ox head aleph, no problem there. That being a Y, a yod, it's kind of contestable. And that is a tov. Okay. Yeah, I don't see that as being a yod, but you know, could be. I don't think so though. It's not correct to be a yod. Yeah, I'm just not seeing that as a yod. And none of my standard references. I think that's more likely a dalet. Yeah, that looks more like a dalet to me than it does a yod, but it's not exactly clear. It's not really clear what that is. All right, so then the final register here begins with an aleph. That's correct. Resh, no problem. Is that a hate? Maybe. Tov? Yeah, that's a tov. His tate here is debatable. It could be a tate. There's no ion there. I don't see an ion there. And let's just go back to that RTI snapshot there just for a moment. Oh, there's another angle to the images. Here, light from a different direction. Again, that's more looking like a hate than a tov. That still looks like a that still looks like a tov, not a bait. I still don't see the lamed. Still don't see the tov down here. Almost the entire register one, I don't see it all. This didn't really clarify the hate. And it certainly did not clarify the tate. Yeah, that hasn't clarified anything here. Okay, so go down here to what he claims is this reads. He claims this reads, who is for L? Who is like L? Erase. Okay, well, considering that whole first register there, I guess he's reading this the other way around. Okay, so he's reading this from right register to left register. So he's reading it from this side this way to and across. So the AR we've granted, H debatable. The tate is there. The rest of this isn't there. I don't know what he's talking about. The rest of this is just A guest taste of the Ephah that I have cooked with your awareness, O beloved Balat. His reading here of Balat just simply isn't there. I've never seen a. I mean, this is one of the smoothest early alphabetic inscriptions I've seen on the matrix stone. Yeah, I'm not getting this. That K is not there. That cough isn't there. So much of this isn't there. It's just, again, I think this is wishful thinking. He has not done the work to prove this is there. Okay, inscription 20. Sinai 352. So he's got here Morence's 2019 reading, Albright's 1969 reading, Boutine's 1932 reading, and Grimet's 1929 reading. And then we get Baron's reading. And we are all full of interesting here. So let's go to 352. Let's see if I got image here. And I do. So let's go take a look and see how it compares to the RTI imaging. Enhancements. He's got here a base layer and a proposed hacking layer. So 4 registers spread out over 5 registers spread out over two images. Let's start with his base layer, because it's kind of weird. We'll start with his register 1 there. Okay, we see the pit right there. See the MAME. Okay, the MAME is not a problem. He thinks this is a noon. It may be, but I don't think there's really enough there to make it a noon. Possible, but it also could be part of this a fissure, a natural scratch that runs from here to here. If that's part of a natural scratch, then that's would discount it as a noon. But the MAME's definitely there. The sheen's there. I can see the sheen. Sheen's really there. Easy to see. The hay. The hate. The hate I don't really see. I don't really see the hate. Should be right there. Should be right there. I don't see any hate there. Normal's visualization. No, I'm not really seeing it. Okay, so let's continue down the inscription. Okay, there should be a oxhead aleph below. Interesting. Okay. I don't see an oxhead aleph there. I see something else. I don't. Yeah, that's not an oxhead aleph. That's looking that's definitely not an oxhead aleph, because there's no header, no top of the head there. I'm thinking that's a Vav. That looks like a Vav. Broken off Vav. We've got a complete loop there. And a tail. That's a Vav. If this was an Aleph, we should see the head come down over top like this. We don't see that. So that looks like a Vav. Sheen, yes, that's there. The Tav is there. Lamet's there. The Bait's there. The Fish Dalet's there. Second Dalet, no. No. That looks like a pit. That looks like a pit. I don't think that's a letter. Flash that around. That's not looking like a letter to me. Yeah, that's looking like a natural pit in the stone. All right. So that's register 1. We do see some other inscriptions here. We'll get back to those. That's part of his hacking there here. Let's go to register 2. Okay, register 2 starts with a MAME. Yes, I see that MAME. No problem with that MAME. That MAME looks good. Oxhead Aleph. You can kind of see here that this stone had been smoothed. All right, you can see here that the original condition of the stone had been smoothed. But this part here looks badly damaged. And I think we are dealing here with a cast. So you're not going to see in a cast here any ochre overlay or anything like that. Ochre is not going to be present because this is a cast. You're also not going to see where any patina on the rock, and that you do see that sometimes. As a rock is exposed to oxygen, it will often develop a patina. Because this is a cast, you're not going to see a patina here. He's operating off of a cast. This RTI image is off of a cast. Totally acceptable, but you're not going to see clear evidence of damage. But this is clearly damaged. You can tell that from the texture of the cast that this has been damaged. And damaged following that line and down. So the remainder of his register, the Aleph, the Hay, and the Bait, you cannot see because this is part of the damaged text. It's ridiculous he'd even claim that. Clearly damaged text. Now, down here, we see the Bait. That's no problem. There is probably an ion there. I do see the ion. So yeah, there's probably an ion there. I will grant that. The L. The L's kind of dodgy. Could be an L. It could be something else too. And let's show you why here. You can kind of see here that there's a line down here. There's also a line that comes across the top here. And then down like that. It's not clear exactly what this is. It could be that line could be part of something that when they inscribed it, it accidentally ran into the eye. That's possible. This might be an L. That's possible. But it's also not it's just a flat line there and then a loop there too. Hard to say what this is. The Tov is there definitely. And then we got his register 3. And he reads this in Boustrophodon order here. So he's now going from a vertical to a horizontal reading. So he starts with a Tov, and then he's got a Nun there. Now, is that Nun actually there? I don't think so. I don't think that Nun's there. If it is, it's a ligature, but I don't see clear evidence of this. The noon is supposed to be in there. You know, and from some angles, this is why you have to keep moving the light around with these RTI images too. Is because if you don't move the light around, your eyes can play tricks on you. It can see things that are not actually there. So this is one of the reasons why you can't rely entirely on an RTI image for a reading. That's why you have to see it in person. But at the same time, too, it doesn't seem very likely that there. The second Tate in his Register 3 is there. Okay, so we've established that. What I think is more likely here, honestly, is not that we are dealing with a boustrophodon. That is, we're not dealing with a vertical reading. I think what's more likely, and we can go here, I think what we're actually, because the buckle here shows the damage to the stone would have cut off the previous letter because the edge of the buckle is right there. So I think what we have here is actually a fourth line of text that was completely destroyed, all except for the last character. That makes a lot more sense here than a boustrophodonic reading. And this is in a stela format. Okay, so we do see that this was carved into the face of the rock like it was a stela. Flat on three sides, and you got the lunate on top there. So, and then they're just going down in column order. Very, very typical of stelas of this kind. And as I say, this is just probably just the final character of a fourth line of text. But now let's go on to his hacking layer reading. Okay. So line 1 is only one or two registers on this. Is there an aleph? Yeah, there's probably an aleph there. We can grant that. Is there a noon there? That's a whole lot more dodgy. Yeah, that's a lot tougher to suss out here. I'm not seeing his noon or his proposed lamed here. Again, what we're dealing with is a text here. This part of the text is also badly damaged right in there. So, given how badly damaged that is right in here, I mean, you can see the aleph there. There's no question there's the aleph there. The ox head aleph. The rest of this, there might be a sheen right here. That's possible. That's possible. That could be a sheen. Yeah, I think that he's correct. I think there is a sheen right in there. But the lamed, no, this is too destroyed to determine if there's a lamed in there. And way too speculative. Way too speculative. All right. Then he has a bait. I think that's reasonable. That's a bait. That noon is reasonable. That sade is reasonable. That hate, sure, that can be that could be a reasonable bait. His yod. Yod. There's supposed to be a yod there. Yeah, I'm not sure about that yod. I think that's a doubtful reading. That's a doubtful reading. The second sade, sure, that looks fine. that curly lamed there. That's just weird. That's just weird. Lameds are not normally inscribed like that. And it doesn't quite curl around either. Oh, that's hard to say what that is. I think what we're dealing with too here is again we're again at that a point in the text where now we've got more damage, surface damage again. If I scroll back, you can see that there's surface damage here. There's more surface damage down in this portion. So could that be a noon at the bottom? Yeah, sure, could be. But it's really hard to tell. You can see that the texture of the surface of the stela has been worn down. So I would say that's a very, very difficult call to make. And then he's got two noons right there as part of register 2. So I think there's some warrant for those noons, but we won't actually know what they mean because of, say, the broken text by that pit. So I think it would be very difficult to get a reading out of this. Now, here's what he gets out of this, which is he proposes, the first layer says, Mahabat Balat Nemshe, O beloved Balat, anointed lady of the heart, give and you shall be given, please, or strength. Again, so much of this is doubtful. Again, this is register 2 doesn't exist. Register 2 doesn't exist. So that whole, basically from Aleph down to that first bait, to, where's he put the Aleph here? Okay, that's register 1. I just not see this right. Okay, this both starts with, one starts with a noon, one starts with a name. I want the one with a name. He's reversed his columns. This is sloppy. So he's reversed his numbers. He didn't check his work here before publishing or posting it. Yeah, he didn't check his work. Otherwise, he would have made this register 1 and this one register 2. But so basically from all that doesn't exist. All that marked in the blue there, I just marked highlighted in blue, that doesn't exist. Okay. That Lamed is super doubtful. Could be a Lamed, might not be, hard to say. That ayin is certainly not very deep. I would totally ignore this whole third register. It doesn't make any sense because it's clearly part of column before his first column. So he's got, essentially what he's got is anointed. But those two dalits are probably part of column 2, so, or at least that first dalit. The second one, there's not even a dalit there. And those dalits, he doesn't even put them into his inscription here. Or upper right corner, and. Yeah, that's not how that works. He's kind of saying that this is a beloved Balat, lady of the heart, anointed lady of the heart, given you shall be given, please. And again, he's resorting to the evocative here. But again, it's just like half these characters don't exist. half these characters don't exist. And the same goes with his hacking inscription too. You know, that L, that Lamed, there's no evidence for that Lamed. So without that, the rest of this just falls to bits. Those dwells together. This is all suppositional at this point. And this portion of the text here is so badly degraded. That bottom portion of the text, after the Sade is just so badly degraded, it's really hard to get a definitive reading out of that. The Sade is probably the last definitive character we get from this. The rest of that's just sort of up in the air. That Yod's debatable. That L and N are certainly debatable. Yeah, I don't think there's anything to this. Okay. Inscription 21, Sinai 356. And Sinai 356, we got Albright, Grimet, and Boutin here. All come up with very similar readings. And this is his transcription, his epigraphy work. He's got 3 registers and kind of a semi-Bustophodonic reading there. Let's take a look at what we got. Down and hit the enhancement, and voila. All right, we'll start with register 1. There's supposed to be a meme across the top. I can sort of see it. I see the meme. Yeah, we can give him the main. The hay? Oh, that's a little less clear. Does he have just a warrant for the hay from anybody else? Yes, he does. So others are seeing that hay too. So let's see if we can spot it. Yeah, I can sort of see it there. The head there, the body there, and the arms. Underneath that, he sees a bait. Okay, I can kind of see something that might be recognizable. Yeah, there it is. It's... Ooh, a couple of horses there. I'm not sure about that hay. It could be a hay. I mean, yeah, there's some warrant for that to be a hay. Something else. But all right, let's move on. So there's that hay. He claims there's an iron right there. Yeah, I can see that. That second bay, this bay right here, that second bait. I'm not so much seeing that. I am seeing some fissures in the rock, though. Those fissures are the same as those fissures up there. So I don't think that bait is actually there. Yeah, that's not looking like a bait to me. That's looking like a natural rock. As you can see, once it's you see that sort of fissure there move on over. It's not restricted. It's not like a groove. It's sort of part of the surrounding matrix. Look at the normals. That didn't clarify. Yeah, I'm just not seeing it. Just not seeing it. Giving this a lot of chances. Doesn't look like anything. Okay, so then he claims there's a Lamet down there. A Tov. Tov I've seen. I can see the Tov. That's supposed to be the Ayin. Not seeing the Lamed. There's that fissure right here. I think what he's seeing is the texture of the rock, and pareidolia is kind of taking. Yeah, I think that's what's happened. Is he's seeing the texture of the stone. This is why you don't rely entirely on RTI imaging. Again, RTI imaging can give you false positives. It can give you false positives. It can't give you false negatives, at least not very often. But it sure can give you false positives. And I think that's what he's done here, is he's used particular reflective angle, kind of seeing something there that looks kind of curly, but isn't there. And that's the danger of using RTI images, is that it can sometimes give you a false positive. I think what we got here is a false, he fell for one of the false positives caused by the stone texture. Okay. So we can eliminate probably a bait and the Lamed. Let's look at his second register. Okay, his second register begins with an ox head aleph, and I have no problem with that. That looks like that's there. That's probably fine. Then a sade, that's fine too. The hate, yeah, I think there's enough of a hate there that you could probably go for that. Reish, oh, yeah, there is suggestion of a Reish there. But is this a just a head Reish, or is this a head and body Reish? Because if it's a head and body Reish, that bait isn't there. This bait isn't there. It's part of one head and body. Just like sometimes on alephs, you get the neck of the ox. Sometimes on Reishes, you get the neck of the person. And when you get the neck of the person and the torso of the person attached to the Reish, it's not a separate letter. So this is very much looking like this is a head and body combo, in which case it should be read just as a Reish, not as a Reish bait. So, and then he's got a noon at the bottom there. Let's see if that pans out. No, that doesn't pan out. You can see that there's his noon on the bottom here. It's got a snake tail, top, and then a head. You can see here that if this is a snake tail, it doesn't attach to the quote head. If it doesn't attach to the quote head, it's not part of this. And you can see it right here. You can see it right here that there's, if that is part of that line, I don't think, I mean, that line should end right there anyway. And right there anyway. But the fact is that you've got stone matrix between that dot and this. That's not a noon. So his last two letters here are in doubt. His His last letter on this register is definitely not there. So when we look at his let's go to, I almost forgot about register 3 here. That TNT. Boom. All right. You'll find register 3 here. Supposed to be right beside the Sade. Is it? It is supposed to be right here. Is that first Tav. Supposed to be a noon. There's another Tav. Eh. Yeah, I'm not seeing this. He has it in dark gray, which means it's a hypothetical that should be there and isn't. And I'm thinking that, yeah, it's not there. I don't get why we would do that. Put a hypothetical text in there that isn't there. That just strikes me as being super bad at epigraphy. I mean, it's not like a reconstruction where maybe a character got dropped, but adding a whole extra piece of something not there, I'm just not buying that. I'm not buying that as sound methodology. One of the things is we as epigraphers, you know, we should be reading what's there. Same goes for that Aleph. That Aleph ain't there either. That Aleph that he hypothetically reconstructed right there. I'm not buying this. Does he include it in his transcription here though? So one here. Yeah, he includes that Aleph in his transcription. You know, an Aleph that's not there. He should have probably bracketed that. Because that's not there. That's clearly not there. That should be right here. And it ain't there. There's no there. Yeah, I'm not seeing that at all. Yeah, the RTI stuff is just showing that there's nothing there. So again, he's forcing this Balot reading on this. M, Mame, Hate, Bait, Iron, Tov are the only letters here that are we can actually be sure of. That Bait, disputable. That Lamed, disputable. So his column 1 reading is not sustainable. That second column, that Raish body thing should not end in a bait and a noon, because that noon is not there, and that bait probably shouldn't be there. As far as that TNT is just, again, that's something he's added to this that's not in the original text. Boy, it must be nice to just add text you wish was there and isn't. Oh, and then he has a hacking there on top of this. An Aleph and an L and another Lamed. Let's see if that hacking there is there. Okay. So he's proposing another Aleph, attached to that first Aleph, facing the other directions. Okay, so here's the first Aleph. So it would have to be an Aleph that's stretched out over here. I am not seeing it. I'm seeing pareidolia. I'm seeing puppies and clouds. I am not seeing that second head. I think what he's done here is he's confused the contour of the rock with an inscription. I think he's seen the contour of the rock here, that top contour, and sort of filled in the blanks with his brain. I don't see a second meme there, or second noon there. There's definitely not a second noon. Okay, we granted the first one, but there's no second one. He's dreaming if he thinks there's a second one there. You can even see the stone is flat right there. There's no second noon there. I think his Yod on the hacking layer is Fantasyland. He proposes a .h there. Or a something else over that. And another Lamed. He loves his Lameds. But I don't see it. I don't see a Lamed right in there. I think he needs to stay away from Amsterdam. Yeah, I don't see anything. I don't see that hacking there he's proposing. And he reads that hacking layer as the god will despoil our taskmaster. That's weird. That's a weird thing. Yeah, Yensel's despoil. Who italicizes what is actually in the text? Okay, so it's El will despoil. That's what he says this is reading. This is, I mean, you usually italicize stuff that's like not in the text. Who reverses that convention? Who does that? You usually have what's in the text in non-italicized standard text, and then you italicize stuff that's not in there. I mean, I know this guy goes to Ariel University, but surely he must know the basics of writing dissertations and papers. Good grief. So what we have here is El despoils for a text that isn't even there. All right. Finally, the last inscription. Sinai, number 22, Sinai 365. And we won't bother with SAS for this one here, because this is a very in-your-face text. We'll just go to the RTI stuff here. So 365. This is a very in-your-face surface text. Okay. It's very smooth. The matrix of the material is very, very smooth. The mean inscriptional depth is quite deep. Basically, an idiot can do epigraphy on this one. Let's see if an idiot can do epigraphy on this one. So we go down to his reading here, and we get a crazy boustrophodon. Okay. He's got a column here that goes down, circles around and up to 2, and goes down to this one here, the intercolumn word. All right, let's look at the text. Let's see if he gets it close to right. There is a sheen. One sheen. Okay, he got that right. Second sheen, bait. What? He's missing this one. That inscription is clear as day. I mean, this one is screaming in your face. That looks like a Lamed. And that is just screaming in your face Lamed. Now, does he include it elsewhere? He does include it elsewhere. He calls it a noon. Okay, it could be a noon. That's possible. Okay, so he's dividing this up into 2 phases. Okay, so it looks like he did catch it, but he caught it as he's ascribing it to a later phase. Okay, the meme, no problem. The noon or the aleph, no problem. There's a hey there, no issue. Hey. Hey, yes. Mame. See if we can find the mame. I think I know what he's driving at here, which is there's a little dip there. But I don't know, man. Not seeing it on the other side. I don't think that meme's there. That doesn't look like it's there. That looks like a scratch in the rock. What about this gray bait? That there. No, I'm not seeing that. Back to specular enhancement. Nope, still not seeing it. See the dip. There might be warrant for the main, but there ain't for the bait. Not seeing evidence of the bait. Yeah, that's... There should be... Of course, he's got it in gray here, which means it's a hypothetical reconstruction that's not there. Thanks, Baron. Yeah, that's not there. Okay, then from register 2. Yeah, that Tov's there. Bait's there. The Ion's there. Vomit's there. Tov. And then the intercolumn register. There does appear to be a Dalit there. No problem with that. This is a problem. That hey is a problem. It's a problem because that's clearly a Zion. There does seem to be a couple of strokes at the bottom of that Dalit. I don't think that's going to work out into a hey. Yeah, I don't see that as being sufficient for a hey. That's a hey, but this is not a hey. That's clearly 2 horizontal strokes. That looks so much like a Zion, it's not even funny. Let's see what the default looks like. Yeah, that's a Zion. There's not even a question here. That's a Zion. Those are deeply etched. They're intentionally grooved. Now, I think what he's trying to do here, and I think it might just be his sloppiness here, but I think what he's trying to say is that this groove here and this groove here gets you the hey. Just imagine a line going from here to here. Can't you see it? It's imaginary. It's magic. All it takes is enough imagination, and you can see the line. See, I'll even blow it up here. See the imaginary line from here to here? Well, you just don't have good enough imagination if you can't see that. Yeah, if you're not seeing that line, don't feel bad because I can't see it either. No, this is definitely a Zion. So now he does have a later scribal scrawl over top, which he claims to be that noon, and we've already given him credit for that noon. That's fine. This is supposedly a noon. His K is supposedly a noon here in the inscription, later scribal there. Not seeing it. And then he's got that meme, and I'm not seeing that either. So only one of his characters am I seeing as a of that scribal layer am I seeing. The other two I'm not seeing. And his hey and his bait I'm not seeing at all. So that's going to lead to a very, very problematic reading here, where he's going to say, "Have joy, my son, from the love of golden ballot, enjoy." Okay. So that Seshem Bene Ma'avav. Yeah, exactly. He needs that bait there, but that bait's not there. That bait's not there. So so it's just not there. The T Balot, yeah, sure, that's there. That T Balot, that's there, that's fine. But the rest of that, though, that's very dodgy. Oh, and that's why he's got that there. So he's reading this also from 3. So he's boustrophodoning it from here. That THN, Tehen. Oh, jeez. Well, since that's not a hey there, I don't think that reading is viable. This is one of the easiest inscriptions to get right. Now, again, everyone disagrees as to what the underlying reading of the language is. We don't know what the underlying reading of the language is. But if we can get the epigraphy right, that's a good start. And sort of here, what separates the men from the boys is just getting the epigraphy right, going to the comparative sources and the comparative epigraphers, and seeing if there's warrant for anything you say. Now, did he have warrant for any of that? Well, he had no warrant for the H. Okay, he had no warrant for the H. It's clearly a Zion or a noon there, noon and Zion. So that's what the epigraphers have seen. The other epigraphers have seen. Yeah, this is bad. This is really bad. Okay, so that is number 22. That's the last of them. Now, we're not going to go... Now, one of the things is that there is another 90 pages left of this document that have nothing to do with his early alphabetic inscriptions work. Most of this stuff is just rehashing the garbage of David Rohl. Okay? So a lot of this is just going to end up being justifications of his assumptions. But there's a couple things that we're not going to go through the whole thing, that's for sure. But there is a couple of things I did want to point out here. Like, for example, he's going to talk about this. He thinks that Anku, one of the viziers of Amenemhat III, he's going to say that this guy, one of the viziers, is a Semite, and this is the inspiration for Joseph. Now, this is the stela that he is going to use as evidence for this. The stela of Reni Seneb. Now, Reni Seneb was the son of Anku. And he is going to focus in on that dude there. This dude right here. Okay? Which says he's an Asiatic. Okay? And what Baron is going to say is that everyone agrees that Anku is a Semite because that guy's called a Semite. And here's what he's going to do. He's going to take this official translation straight from the Steelers plaque at the New York Met. This was where this is housed. Okay. In the middle register, which we just showed you, Royal Seal Bearer, and this is the translation, Director of the Broad Hall, Rennie Seneb seated. The baker, hurrah, with a tray. That's hurrah right there. That's hurrah. That's the baker. And then the major dono, Werni Amun, called Reshi, the bowl and insert, major domo Iwi, with leg of beef, Asiatic Seneb Rennie Seneb with a cup in a basket. And he says, note how Rennie Seneb is called an Asiatic. No. Rennie Seneb is not called an Asiatic. Seneb, Rennie Seneb is. Seneb, Rennie Seneb is not Rennie Seneb. They're two different people. This guy here is Rennie Seneb. This guy down here is Seneb Rennie Seneb. This guy is the master of the house. He's son of Anku. This dude down here is some Asiatic slave. This is the sort of understanding and exegesis we're dealing with here with Baron. He's so committed to his presuppositions that he just can't seem to get past how beholden he is to David Rohl and to Peter van der Veen. And it's ugly and sad, and there's another pathetic selfie of himself in the top corner there. Okay? So, this is a case where a guy can't read the plaque at the Met well enough to draw the proper conclusions. So, but it just goes on here. He's going to talk about the seal impression that was found at Tel el-Daba. He's going to claim this is Baal Savan, and the bulls are Yahweh. The bull is Yahweh. Is there any warrant for this? No. Nothing. Then he's going to get into, say, the 12 columns. This is the palace layout of supposedly Joseph's palace at Avaris. He's going to take these 12 columns, and he's going to say those are the 12 columns that represent the 12 sons of Jacob, while ignoring these 4 columns, these 9 columns, and these, I think it's 18 columns. Yeah, 18 columns. Okay, so this is cherry picking the data, where you pick something that fits your hypothesis. It's confirmation bias. It's completely confirmation bias. I've also talked about the 12 graves of around there, 12 tombs. We do know that there is more than 24 tombs there. Some of these tombs were actually located under the palace. So that doesn't make sense either. And then this whole idea of the statue as being Joseph, again, there's no evidence in this reconstruction here. They put on Joseph's name, but that's not found archaeologically. We don't have an inscription there. That inscription was destroyed. So this reconstruction is massively misleading, and it's very, very typical of the stuff that David Rohl puts out and the patterns of evidence guys put out. Very misleading. So, we are just, but there's a lot of this in this document that is just, he's even claiming that there's mushrooms in this thing. Just, yeah, mushrooms growing upside down like that. Have you ever seen a mushroom grow upside down like that? I haven't. So, just to sort of sum up here, and we're going to sum this up now. On down. I hope you have appreciated by this point that not only are Baron's readings not good, they're quite frankly irresponsible. There's pareidolia, there's making stuff out of whole cloth, there's relying on false positives, his assumptions that, using David Roll's chronology just lacks. I mean, it's completely discredited, but he continues to do it anyway. His idea that these are essentially Hebrew inscriptions. Again, nobody in the field thinks these are Hebrew inscriptions, and rightly so. His idea of this being a conflict between the followers of Blot versus the followers of El lacks warrant. It lacks warrant. And we've been through enough of his inscriptions now to show they lack warrant. His Yah equals talk hypothesis is cherry picking. This is just a disaster. It's a disaster of a document. It's a disaster of research. There's just no other way to sugarcoat this. His translations are gibberish. That's even if we grant that everything he did epigraphically is correct. We've demonstratively proved that it isn't. Both his inscriptions, 357 and 361, supposedly showing the presence of Moses in those inscriptions, have been shown to be complete and utter hogwash. There's nothing there. His methodology is so poor, it's ridiculous. And I just hope this guy doesn't get a degree, because frankly, this will be nothing but trouble to the community if he does. So we're going to wrap it up there. We want to thank you for sticking it out with us for nearly 6 hours, and we appreciate you watching. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.